Alright, so I got this one back together. So the other night I took and I blew out all the brake lines because I removed the master cylinder. So now I can actually hook the brake lines up. So you can see where the master cylinder was. So I blew those out so there wouldn't have any dirt in them to go into the new wheel cylinders. So today the goal is to get the master cylinder in and the brakes bled, if nothing else. So here's the new and old master cylinder. So they're just a little different, but they're close enough that they'll work. So I got the new one bench bled. It's just sitting at the weird angle because this leaks a little bit and I didn't want to lose all the fluid. So we'll get that installed. So I have to put the new boot on, and I don't know if I'm going to put the new push rod thing on there. I got a new bolt for the back of it, but I can't use this one, so I'm going to have to use the old one because it's threaded at the end. So I can put my new new brake light switch in here. So I got those parts to get figured out and installed. So I gotta pull the old pieces off if I'm gonna change this and everything. So I'm gonna go see how hard that's gonna be. Otherwise, get the brakes bled after the master cylinder's in and everything else. Okay, so we got the master cylinder in and the brakes are bled. So now, if it will start, since I haven't started it in a while, I'm going to try testing out my brakes. So you can't see very much. So you can see the new master cylinder. So I'm gonna try it. Okay, so we're gonna see if this thing will start. I tried starting it a little bit ago, but after it sits here for a while, it drains out of the fuel line and slowly. And so I'm gonna pour a little gas in the carburetor, just get it to fire off first, and hopefully it'll pick up by then. Okay, time to test these brakes. So we have some success. It stops better than my pickup does. So one thing down, brake lights to go. And whatever else I come up with to do in the meantime. So I'm gonna get after it some more. Okay, so next agenda is brake lights. So they got kind of a mess of wiring in here for these. And you can see kind of a big wadded up mess. So I gotta fix that and figure out how I'm gonna wire them up through the rest of the way. So I figure I'll get this all straightened out first, where these are wired up right, and then go from there. Once I get those wired up and working, then I'm gonna attempt to start on the headlights. I'll probably change the oil in the rear end and the transmission first. But brakes work, so I need to get brake lights working, change the oil in rear end and transmission, and then on to headlights. So I am going to get started on that. Okay, we're gonna check and see if I got the brake lights wired right. So I took them apart, rewired them and everything, so now it's time to check them. Okay, so now that they work, I'm going to put the lens back in this one, and then I'm going to try and mess around with some other stuff. Okay, so today was fairly successful. I got insurance on this thing now. But before I go down and actually get it licensed, I got to do a few things. One of them being the generator that was on here wasn't working, so we tested a bunch of them, found one that was working, and discovered that if you put the fan up where it's supposed to be, you can't really see it, but it hits the distributor down here. And so there, you can see it right there. It hits the distributor. So I have to space it out so it won't hit the distributor no more. And so I'll show you the difference here. Here's the original one versus what I put on there. So you can see the difference, the whole belt width. So I bought some spacers, and we're going to see if I can't make those work. I don't really want to use this fan because it's 4-blade. This truck has a 6-blade on it. So if I can keep the 6-blade, I'm more than happy to do that. So, project number 1. Project number 2 is change the bulbs and the tail lights to 6 volt and the oil in the rear end. Project number 3 is headlights. So I need to get as many of those done tonight as I can. So I'm going to get after it. Okay, so here's the finished product. So I haven't tested it to see if it wobbles any yet, but you can see that I have some gap down here between the coil and the fan blade now. So it's not a lot of gap, but it's enough. Just enough the fan doesn't hit. So now I got to run my wire from the cutout either straight over to the battery or up to the amp meter. I don't trust some of the original wiring. You know, they had 2 wires going to the generator. You only need 1. So I'm just going to tape them up and bypass them and run my own wiring enough to get a charging system, because I don't want to wind up with a big mess. So I got my wire, and I'm going to run some wires now we'll see how far I get. Okay, so it's been a while since I did any video on this. I got it licensed and I've driven it a couple hundred miles, but I'm still working on it. So last time you saw, I had just done this modification with the fan. So since then, I have run my own wiring for that, for headlights. You can kind of see down there, and tail lights and all that kind of stuff. I got this vent to open up here. Some other stuff I've done to it. I put in the dash panel and these side ones. The upper one is still out because of the windshield wiper. I got a makeshift fuel gauge. One of my 55 Fords right here. That it's not accurate, but it works sorta enough to tell me an idea of what I got in there. So I got the amp meter works now, and the temperature gauge. Otherwise, nothing else on the up here does. My headlights are wired to this switch, and they do work on low beam only. Another thing I discovered was when I drove it the first time, it was really, really slow, and I had to ride the throttle the whole time. And I discovered that the gentleman I bought it from had spark plug wires 3 and 4 crossed. So I crossed those back over, and it runs really good now. It'll do 50 miles an hour all day long. I put this spark plug wire tube on this side in today. You can see I got the other one down there. I'm probably not going to get to it. I was driving it home the other night, and it shut off on me, so we flat towed it home a couple miles. And I discovered this morning that I knew it was fuel pump problems, but I ordered a fuel pump. It's been a couple of days, and I just hadn't had time to touch it. So this morning I came out here to try and figure out what for sure went wrong. I knew it was fuel. I discovered that the fuel pump was fine. It was just so loose you could grab it and shake it around on there. So I had to change this piece here to get it to work, because there was a stripped out bolt that was missing and the other one was really loose. So I don't know if you can tell, but this hole down here is the stripped out one. The other one's fine, so we're going to put a heated coil in it. So I stole the one off of that engine there to put on there, and it seems to run good now again. So the thing on the agenda for it today is this exhaust manifold is cracked in several places, and it has a really bad exhaust leak. It's really loud, and so I'm going to take one of them off the other motor I got in there that I stole the other piece off of, and see if it's good enough to put on here. The other thing that I had done to this was I had some glass packs put on it, so it made it a little quieter there. But what made it even better was changing those 2 spark plugs wires around. Makes it run so much better. I did pull the distributor cap apart and cleaned them up, and so I don't know how much that helped. But for now, I'm going to try and get the exhaust manifold off this other motor in there and see if I can get this one put back together with a non-leaky cracked up manifold. So I'm going to see what happens with one in there. Okay, so I got the exhaust manifold off. I took this panel off of here, makes it a lot easier to access. So here's the manifold. You can see the crack there. The ears are broke off there. That one's up there. They're all old brakes. None of them are fresh. So now I get to run a tap up the holes, clean them out, and put the other manifold on. Okay, so I got the exhaust done on this, temporarily done. So, I don't know if you can tell, but I had to cut the exhaust off here and turn it. And I don't have a gasket in here because I didn't have one for it, so I gotta make a gasket for there eventually, but I didn't get it quite right, so the exhaust pipe's kind of at a weird angle. And then I shortened the rest of it because it had a bunch sticking out. But it runs a lot quieter now. So I got that done. Now I need to adjust the idle. So I need to figure out how to do that, because it idles way too high, especially after it warms up. And I think that's why I have trouble shifting it. So that's the next thing on the list. And so I'm gonna mess with that for a few minutes here, and we'll see what I do after I get that done. Alright, so I got my idle speed set where I want it. I drove it today, and it's much easier to shift and shift smoothly. I'm still not used to double clutching to shift up. I have to double clutch shift into third in my pickup if I shift down. But much quieter. So now that it runs better, it's more fun to drive. Anyway, not gonna get anything else done on this thing tonight, so I will go finish mowing the lawn and mess with it some more another day.